Why spend thousands on a basic will when you can get access to legal help for around $1 a day? With Legal Shield, you can put a full estate plan in place, including a will, health directives, and powers of attorney to help protect your family and hard-earned assets. Sign up today at LegalShield.com and get 10% off our annual plans. It's finally simple and affordable. Legal Shield. Real lawyers, really affordable. Sign up at LegalShield.com. That's LegalShield.com. Legal Shield does not provide legal representation or advice. See a plan for complete terms.
I'm Tad Flakey.
I'm Lilibet Flakey.
And this is Pointless Global News. On today's show, a British man wipes his ass with a sandwich, and we'll tell you why.
Then I'll do a deep dive into why rats get the munchies when exposed to marijuana.
Next, Senator Mitch the Glitch McConnell is either dead or alive. Do we know? I'll provide some context. That story's coming later. But first, a man who shat on a wall outside a club before wiping his ass with a sandwich has been sent to prison for 6 weeks. If you ask me, that's not really long enough. But anyway, Cheltenham magistrates issued the sentence to Mark Mortimer at a hearing on July the 1st. As you may have figured out by the word magistrates, this happened in the United Kingdom. Mortimer of Newland Street in Colford pleaded guilty to outraging public decency and to breaking into a cottage in Lidbrook and stealing a torch on the same day when his case finally reached court on April 1st this year. The 47-year-old has been sent behind bars after being given 6 weeks in prison for an act of outraging public decency and the same sentence to run concurrently for burglary and theft. In May this year, those running the Lidbrook and District Community Social Club in the small forest of Dean Village spoke about what he did at the venue on that evening of February 13th back in 2024. A spokeswoman for the club, who did not want to be named, previously said he came in at about 8:30 in the evening and acted very bizarrely. He said some strange things. He asked if he could use the toilet. We said that he could, and he did. He was in there for about 4 or 5 minutes. She said Mortimer, who had a dog with him, was blunt, asking for a drink, but saying that he didn't have any money to pay for it. He also reportedly claimed that he had a bomb in his pocket, although club officials saw for themselves that it was actually just a large silver metal ball. The spokeswoman said staff pretended that the club was closing because his behavior was so strange, and, they just wanted him to leave. But they were amazed when he then went outside and shat on the wall outside the club before wiping his ass with a sandwich that he took out of a black bag that he had with him. The spokeswoman, who has run the club for about 10 years, said, "I've never known anything so disgusting in all my life. You don't expect somebody to do something that disgusting."
Well, it would have been even worse if he had decided to eat the sandwich after he used it.
And, some weirdos probably would. But thankfully he didn't.
And I think there are worse things you could wipe your butt with than a nice little soft sandwich.
And, I worry about that sandwich. That sandwich is going to need counseling.
I think so, too.
It was terribly abused.
A dog probably came along and his dog might have eaten it afterwards, but I digress.
Exactly.
A lot of people, let's call them Doge, think that scientific studies on animals are a waste of time and resources. Those people, however, can go to hell, because without people like the fine folks at the University of Calgary and Washington State University, a joint study, seriously, how else would we find out, just like humans, rats get the munchies when exposed to marijuana? The university, which appears to have been had a large number of rats lounging around, as well as a surplus of weed, suggests that maybe the scientists should get off their high asses and clean a little bit instead of getting rodents wasted. But who are we to judge? It turns out they did this on purpose, as opposed to a smoke sesh in a dorm room, where they eventually realized that a rat was quoting, "I think you should leave" sketches along with them. In fact, the scientists went out of their way to prove their point. Most animal testing using marijuana has been done previously using injectable forms of THC, said the University of Calgary neuroscientist Dr. Matthew Hill. The way that affects behavior is really quite different than inhalation, which is how the majority of humans consume cannabis, he said. And so, once we had developed and worked with some of our collaborators this ability to create vapor delivery of cannabis, we did a rat version in our lab. Sure sounds to us like they inhaled and blew the smoke into the rats' faces, but we're not scientists. This proves that getting the munchies is more than just a placebo effect. For the first hour after being exposed to cannabis vapor and getting intoxicated, the rats kind of went to town eating, Hill said. Rats that received the placebo did absolutely nothing when giving access to food. But once high, they chowed down. The study even looked into discovering their favorite kind of food, which was pretty much all of it, according to Hill. We give them high fat, we give them high carb, whatever. They seem to like everything. The Washington State University researchers did the same thing with high humans, and it turned out they like beef jerky the best. That seems particularly arbitrary, and I have to assume there was no candy involved in the choices of food offered. The study did have implications that can carry over to humans, and you're going to want to hold on to your hats here. It turns out that weed might stimulate appetite, and while that's probably obvious to many a stoner, this can help with chemotherapy-induced nausea, as there's evidence that cannabis can suppress nausea. It could also potentially help those with eating disorders. As for the rats, they're probably really hoping that some more studies are done with them involving cannabis and food. Well, this is nothing new. We've been using THC compounds to help with chemotherapy, nausea, and lack of appetite for decades. So why they would need to study this in rats and waste that money is a mystery to me.
And speaking personally, it helps me sleep too.
All righty then.
I love my weed gummies.
Let's get personal here, Tad.
Yeah, I like to do that.
And for the record, Lilibet does not indulge.
No, she does not. She knows better than I do. Finally, Mitch McConnell has been in the hospital since June 14th, but don't worry. His office says it was just a mild case of pneumonia that kept him in the hospital that long. Dozens of elected officials and various media pundits all claimed simultaneously last week that each and every one of them had talked to their good friend Mitch McConnell for about 20 minutes on roughly the same set of subjects. None of this passes the smell test. Meanwhile, MAGA activist and known fact embellisher Laura Loomer spent several days saying she had it on good authority that McConnell was brain dead. She did not explain how anyone would be able to tell one way or the other, but she nonetheless emphatically claimed that was the case. Anyway, on Sunday, staff provided a photo of McConnell in bed, holding a newspaper next to his wife, Elaine Chao, who spent at least the first 2 weeks of his hospitalization on a business trip to China. As one does, you know. Loomer was unmoved. She claimed the photo was a photo that could have been taken at any time, and that the newspaper's text looked AI-generated. She also claimed the tag on his shirt was suspiciously blurred, and that there was no IV in the frame. This is such bullshit, she wrote. She then claimed that McConnell's fingernails had been blurred, so much so that they disappeared. What were they thinking? My God. Because apparently everyone else's fingernails are sharp and crisp in regular photos, or perhaps the fingernails are vampires and don't show up in photos. It makes so much sense, as much as anything else, which is not much. A community note confirmed that McConnell was holding that morning's Washington Post sports section. And then Grok, the AI search engine of X, got involved, because Grok gets involved in everything now and sometimes even manages not to call itself Mecha Hitler and drop racial slurs while doing it. Grok confidently but wrongly agreed that the photo was AI-generated, citing Snopes, the Cincinnati Enquirer, and something called SynthID Watermark, which apparently is a real thing. Apparently, Grok mistook the photo for an older, already debunked fake showing McConnell on life support. Grok eventually reversed itself and then told everyone to eat 5 rocks every day for health reasons. McConnell, age 84, remains hospitalized for health issues that his office describes as mild. To his credit, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is threatening to replace McConnell with a temporary senator of his choice until a special election can be held. If McConnell's handlers don't offer proof of life other than a still photo that's been massively edited by AI, like Mitch doing a video interview with a real reporter, that might clear things up. Get some popcorn, everyone, because, this is going to be really fun to watch.
I think it was so obvious looking at that picture that it was AI generated. The proportions of him in that big giant hospital chair, the look on his face, everything was just off, and I didn't need any AI to tell me that. You could just tell by looking at it that something was wrong.
Plus, it looked like he had a facelift while he was in the hospital, too.
Well, that's because it was like for 3 years ago.
Exactly.
I unfortunately believe that he probably is in a coma somewhere and not going to come back from that, but only time will tell.
And that's a wrap for another Pointless Global News. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Tad Flakey.
I'm Lilibet Flakey.
Stay pointless, my friend.
Summer is here, which means we all want to look and feel our best. A GLP-1 may be right for you. Visit orderlymeds.com to learn more about which GLP-1 you could be eligible for. Getting started is fast, easy, and happens virtually through telemedicine from licensed professionals. Check it out for yourself. Go to orderlymeds.com/podcast. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. Taking care of yourself feels great. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.